Hi, everyone. You're listening to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsville with Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office in the city of Pittsville. Thanks for tuning in. So today we have with us Catherine Van Bramer. And Catherine, first and foremost, is no stranger to Backstory. Catherine is my colleague. I like to say she's my work sister in the mayor's office. And in the early days of Backstory, Catherine worked the boards. And so she actually was in the seat where I am, controlling the boards, making sure I kept on time. And so I greatly appreciate the service that Catherine provided and helped me with. But a little bit about Catherine, because she is an accomplished woman. So like I said, she is the executive assistant to the mayor for the city of Pittsville. And while she assumed this role in 2016, Catherine is no newcomer to City Hall. She's worked for the city since 2010 after graduating from Westfield State College. She has held positions in the city clerk's office and the conservation department. She was a part of the 2013 cohort for Lippy, which was run through the Women's Fund of Western Massachusetts. Government is at the core of Catherine's interest. She is a member of the Ward 6 Democratic Committee since 2013, and she now serves as chair. And she is an alumna of the Berkshire Leadership Program's class of 2014. And she went on to serve as vice chair and chair in subsequent years. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So we have with us a really great person. So welcome, Catherine.
Thanks, Roberta, for having me today.
Well, thank you. Long time no see.
I know.
All right, so let's get into a little bit about your background. So you're born and raised in Pittsfield.
Yes, born and raised in Pittsfield. I'm the oldest of three, and grew up in this community. My family is pretty large on both sides of my family. My mom has, there's 4 siblings altogether, and then on my dad's side, it's 7.
Wow.
So lots of aunts and uncles in the area, lots of cousins, lots of family, and it was always a part of my life in childhood growing up, was lots of family always around.
You know, I think for myself, I don't have a big immediate family, and I was always in awe of people who had these big families, because I always envisioned holidays being these spectacular events. Did you guys have family traditions that really helped seal your experience growing up?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things when my parents had myself and my sisters was trying to make it sort of that central place. So everybody came over to our house growing up. We would have Christmas, birthday celebrations, all the holidays, where everyone would come over. And they made it easy for us as, we had that one stop. We didn't have to go very far. But yeah, it was definitely a great opportunity to be together with family. And it was always great because they were always around. Someone always to, help out where we needed, or if we could help them. But yeah, family's always great.
So in addition to just that family experience, one of the things that we've always talked about is just your school experience. And you attended Conti, you attended Reed, and you attended Taconic. And we've talked a little bit about how being exposed to people from different backgrounds at such an early age helped to shape you and shape your thinking. And so what was it about just growing up in this kind of environment?
I think attending Pittsfield Public Schools, I can only speak from my experience, but attending Conti at a very young age, I was exposed to people from all backgrounds, all cultures, which really was just something that was incorporated into my life early on. So I know nothing else. And I have a natural curiosity to learn about others and from their experiences and to hear about them. So I think it just gives me a more worldly perspective, and in no way am I an expert in any of it. But I think the more people have an opportunity to be outside of their own bubble, gives them a different perspective on the world at a larger scale.
That's true. And I think what it is, it normalizes things for you too. And so it just becomes part of your being. So I think that's key. I just thought of something just in terms of that family and that Van Bramer last name, because you're absolutely right. You know, that your family is huge. Have you ever done any genealogy?
I have. One of my family members is very big into genealogy, and when I graduated high school, she had gifted me a genealogy book. This genealogy book traced back my maternal grandfather on his side of the family, so the Hayes side of the family, and it went back to like the 1800s.
Wow.
And so with that research, I started with Ancestry in building out that tree on both sides of my family, and have been able to trace back about the third, fourth great-grandparents, which has been really great journey to go through and experience.
What does that translate to? Third, fourth grandparents? What are we talking here?
About the 1800s.
Whoa.
So probably mid to late 1800s. I haven't been able yet to necessarily, because I have some roots from Scotland and Ireland and Germany. I haven't been able to trace it that far back yet. But definitely something that I love doing and love learning about.
That's so fascinating.
Where my roots are and
so
from.
I did like Ancestry DNA too, and it was fascinating. I don't have my results in front of me, but I can tell you that it said I was 33% Nigerian.
Where I'm 33% Scottish.
I love it. I love it. There was actually a little 3%. Scottish there too.
I think we do have that in common.
We do. All right. So genealogy aside, one of the things that as kids, we always have that dream profession, and especially growing up in an environment where you see so many things, you're influenced by so many people, your family is large, you're in this great environment where you see so many people and perspectives. Did you have an idea of what you wanted to be when you were a kid?
I did. I think a lot of people, for me, it was everybody in my family knew I wanted to go into law.
Okay.
I wanted to be a lawyer. That was goal day one. I mean, even starting in college, I became a political science major to go into that field of law. So that was that sort of trajectory. But then I had an experience, an internship. Senator Downing was our senator at the time. And that was something that my mom had discovered initially around my college years. And she was like, you should try this.
Yeah.
And that gave me a different perspective of what I wanted to do with my life and government. And I never had given it a thought, but being on the front lines and helping constituents out and listening to their concerns, in making a difference, that to me was the spark.
Yeah.
Then that led me, as through my college career, still graduated with a political science major, but had more of a trajectory within the world of government. So started taking more government-based classes and figuring out, what can I do with this, and how can I be involved in my own government?
Yeah. So it inspired you to shift perspectives and get on the front lines. Now, would you consider yourself a person that at that time, were you comfortable with public speaking? Did you like to talk and be on the front lines in that way?
No, I mean, I was the kid in school who always got that comment on a report card. She needs to participate more in class. She needs to speak up a little bit more. So I don't think I was ever destined for the world that I work in. I think a lot of that growth came at my time in the city clerk's office, because that's such a public-facing department. You're really on the front lines of it's a lot of navigating. It's a lot of service-based tasks and activities, and so that really sort of pushed my abilities and grew them more than I thought that I would ever be. I just thought I'd be that person working in the office doing my thing, but it's definitely public facing, and the more I did it, the more I became comfortable with it, and then grew from there.
let's backtrack a little bit to you graduate from Westfield. Now, you're a young professional at the time. You have the choice. I mean, obviously, you chose Pittsfield. You chose to come back. But you had a choice to make, and you chose to come back to the city that you grew up in. Why?
I think for me, going away to college was a great experience. I did commute for the most part of that, so I was still, living here within the community, but attending classes out at Westfield. And I guess I never really thought otherwise. Like, I wanted to take what I was learning and what I was experiencing back to my hometown and really seeing what opportunities were here for me. And so senior year of college, I was in that mode of what am I going to do next? And so really looked for those opportunities. And that's when I found one. I remember it clearly.
How did you find it?
It was the week of finals. I received an interview for my position in the conservation department, so it was like week of finals, so I was going back and forth, but found time for the interview and got the job shortly thereafter.
Now, was it strategic on your part to line up a job right after graduation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't want that sort of in between, so it was like months before graduation that I started looking and figuring out sort of the direction I wanted to go.
See, that's what I did too. When I was leaving college, I said, I'm not leaving college with all this debt and no job.
Right. Lots of responsibility.
And you can't try looking for a job after you have that cap and gown and you return it and then you're like, okay, there's no job. Like, that has to start. You have to backward plan. So you were very diligent and strategic in lining up that opportunity. So going into, right out of college into city government, were your eyes just like wide open?
I think they were. I think it was a lot of, I didn't ever have the assumption that I was going to go into a position and be like the leader automatically right away. I knew I had to work my way up, and that's just a little bit of my style. Yeah. I don't go in thinking that I know everything. There's always opportunities for me to learn. Yeah. And so I really took that job, and I met a lot of great people within it fell under the community development department. Have made a lot of great connections there. In community development, they touch upon everything from housing to new projects to building and zoning. It's really all-encompassing, and in one of our go-to departments within City Hall. And in the world of conservation, I didn't have a background in environment or anything like that, but I learned a lot of the permitting and the regulatory nature of what that department does and handles. What
were some of the resources that helped acclimate you to city government?
I think one of the greatest resources was there were a few people within the department that I would consider sort of mentors and sort of my go-to people. They could walk me through step by step. If I had a question on something, they were there to help me and guide me and sort of say, this is how you do it. And so those were things that I learned and picked up along the way.
All right. So you're in conservation. At some point, you make the shift to the city clerk's and registrar of voters office. Now, was this something that you were like, okay, I'm ready to learn more and I'm ready to make this transition?
Absolutely. I think it was one of those things where I was looking for a little bit more. I had put some time in the conservation department, and I also am an observer of people and things. So when I learned more about what the city clerk's office does, I said, And there was an opportunity for an opening that came within the department. And I said, why don't I try? Yeah. And you never know if you don't give it a go. So I filled out the application, submitted it, was lucky to get an interview and then secure the job. And I spent some great years over there. And I just... in that role, I love elections. I am the government geek 101. I love every aspect of what that office does and is. And, elections to me is like where my happy place is. Right. So I think also providing access to government for people is also very important to me.
Was that something that was nurtured once you got into city government and you learned about the process, or did you feel like you always had this innate love of government and policy?
I think it's in my nature. Like, I am a natural helper. I'm always one to say, what can I do to be a part of the team, to help the team to achieve that goal? So I think working in that department, it balanced that out.
Yeah.
It complemented that nicely, because I was able, people would come in with a question, and even if it wasn't our department, I could, with the knowledge I was learning along the way, I was able to help them navigate to, okay, you're coming in with this request, you should talk to this department, and here's your contact person for over there. So that way they felt like, okay, they were being listened to, but also gathering the information that they needed.
So not only did you create this, you were involved in this world, but you actually had the opportunity to observe, recognize the need, and then create something. So tell the listeners a little bit about an initiative called Be a Voter.
Absolutely. The Be a Voter campaign was something that Mayor Tyer was city clerk at the time, and we are both very similar in our passion for civic engagement and getting people involved in their government. And I think the idea behind Be a Voter was the fact of if I'm describing myself to a person, I'm saying I'm a daughter, a sister, a friend. There are all these traits that I would use to describe myself. In my affiliations that I have. And to me, voting is like, I'm there no matter if it's a primary, a special election, a regular election. I'm there because I understand how important that is. And a part of this campaign was to have other people understand the importance. I know voting wasn't accessible for everybody at all aspects of our history, and there's still work to be done on voting rights and access. But I think making voting a part of who you are in being a voter is a message that we were trying to convey to the public, and making it not only just something that you do, but a part of who you are. Right,
because I think there was the thought that people came out when there was sort of the major, like a presidential election, but during the years where maybe that wasn't the case, that you would see turnout dip. And the thing is that, I mean, if people would realize that really it's so important to really take notice of your local elections, that's where it matters.
Yes, indeed. We always explain it, like when I'm talking to people and having these sort of conversations, I say, yes, it's important to vote for president. Yes, it's important to vote for your senators and representatives in Congress. But they're not impacting the day-to-day operations. A lot of that work and what we see when we travel throughout this community happens at that local level. Yes, there's a lot of partnerships we have with state and local and federal government leaders, but a lot of those, like what's happening in your school system, that's the responsibility of the school committee. What is, say you want to start a new business, you're not calling the president asking him what those opportunities are to start that new business. That happens at the local level and with government. So it's important to not forget those elections because, we always see turnout go up every 4 years, and it's great to see that. But I want turnout to be that high, if not higher, in every election.
Absolutely. I think, as a naturalized citizen, for me, the power of the vote is it's so important. And I look at it like a sacred right. I remember every time it's time to vote, I would always bring my children with me because, even though they're born here, they're, American citizens by birth, I want them to understand that this is it's a sacred right. It's a privilege, and you should never, ever, ever take it for granted. And so I think that it's an awesome thing to lift it up. Do you think that the campaign was able to do what it needed to do?
I think it did at the time because, we had made like a banner. We participated in Third Thursdays at the time to try to get people to sign a pledge to make voting a part of who they are. And then we had those pledges hanging up at City Hall just to show people that, hey, look, they're all committed to being a voter.
Okay.
So I think I would love to see some resurgence of that campaign and getting that back on track. But yeah, I think it did what it intended to do at the time.
Well, speaking of campaigns and initiatives, when we think about the whole Be a Voter project, I almost think that it laid the groundwork for something that we know today as, well, it's a different initiative. Let me just say that. But it's a program that you implemented, and it's called Citizens Academy. And so Citizens Academy is for those who don't know, it's a free 10-week session designed to teach residents about the inner workings of local government, and it was implemented in 2018. And Catherine brought it to the city of Pittsfield and oversees this initiative. And so, Catherine, tell us a little bit about it and why it was important to bring it here.
I would love to talk about Citizens Academy.
Of course you would.
Any chance I get to talk about Citizens Academy, I'm in. So Citizens Academy was inspired by an idea. We have, as municipal officials, we have conferences that happen on an annual basis, usually take place out in Boston through the Massachusetts Municipal Association. And one of the workshops that they were planning some years ago was about civic engagement and different ways to connect with your community. And I was like, that sounds like it has my name on it. So with the support of the mayor, I was able to attend that conference and attend that session. And with that, they were talking about the Citizens Academy. And I was like, wait a minute. Why haven't we had one of these in Pittsfield? Why are we missing out? And so I took what I learned from there, and then through some follow-up conversations with some of those communities who implemented these types of programs, took the what I learned from them and figured out what worked best for us as a community and said, let's do this. And the mayor was 110% behind board. So is the founder and creator and project coordinator.
Yes.
I have led 3 classes of the Citizens Academy, 54 participants.
Wow.
Over that period of time have participated, really getting firsthand exposure to government. I mean, we take them all.
So who are some of these participants? Are these people who are newcomers to the city? Are these people who have lived here all their lives? Tell us a little bit about them.
Sure. For the most recent class, we had some people who had moved into our community during the pandemic. We had some lifelong residents. We have some people who work in the community who are trying to learn more about it. So it was a really great representation, I felt like, from a great spectrum of people, both new and older who have been here. So I think it gives a great dynamic to the class because you have people who are eager. First of all, it amazes me that people want to spend 10 weeks of their time learning about city government.
It's a commitment.
It definitely is a commitment.
Yeah.
But that there are other people out there who want to just learn more. And even if they just walk away a little bit more informed, to me, that's mission accomplished.
Right.
To me, that's like, okay, they're just a little bit more informed of why we do things and how we get to those decisions.
So sometimes people come into programs like that and they have a preconceived notion. Have you been able to hear from some of the participants who say, I thought the city was X, Y, and Z, but now after going through Citizens Academy, I think it's more like whatever. Do you have any kind of anecdote or, participant feedback that you could share?
Yes. I think, we try to give them exposure to a lot of different city departments. So everything from the airport to public services to community development to the city clerk's office. We really try to give them, it's a short amount of time to cover all of that ground. But I think sometimes there are some notions that they come in with where they actually get to talk to that department head or staff person, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that that's how you plan, or that this is how you accomplish something, or that this is how I get my issue addressed.
Right.
They're really getting that direct resource to say, I now know how to help others and help myself to get these things accomplished that I'm looking to take care of.
Why do you think that there is this roadblock to folks maybe feeling like they don't know how to access their local government, or these challenges, because we hear it all the time. Have the participants shared what they thought were some of their concerns in terms of accessing government?
I think sometimes it's due to like prior experiences, whether that be here locally or maybe through somewhere else that they've lived. Sometimes government has this sort of reputation of being the big thing that you can't necessarily beat. And in a part of my work that I commit to every day is to try to break down those barriers, try to make it more accessible, and do everything in my power to help people navigate. Like, I might not have the answer right now, but I can either do some research and get back to you, or help connect you to the person who has some expertise in that field. And I think what sometimes gets lost is that the people who work in government, you know, public services is sometimes tough and challenging. We don't do it for, you know, to be, you know, we do it for the sake of...
You do it because you care.
We do it because you care. You don't get into public service for the sake of trying to make it, you know, you're not... You shouldn't be looking at it from what can I get from this? You should be looking at it from how can I help others?
Absolutely.
And I think that's the attitude that you know, I have in the role. And I think sometimes, you know, people have particular interactions with government that may not go well, and sometimes that narrates it for them going forward. So I think breaking down some of those barriers, and two, also having the ability to ask questions helps them understand. I feel sometimes people don't think that they have the ability to ask questions or, you know, figure out answers. And so it kind of, when there's a lack of information or blank space, they just fill it in without giving, you know, having that opportunity to be able to actually know how something has come to be or how they can be helped.
Well, you're absolutely right, Catherine, because government, I like to say, becomes, for some, an amorphous blob that is just government, right? And it's faceless, it's nameless, and government is just looming. And the reality is that government is comprised, whether it's on, you know, local, state, federal level, government at each level is comprised of people. It's not the blob. It actually, there are like human beings working in government, and people do care. And, you know, and I think that's so important because, you know, people will definitely, you're absolutely right. When they come to an issue with preconceived notions, and they bring that with them, and they're expecting sometimes a certain response. And I've seen you at work, and you have a way of diffusing that, and you just come back again to, how can I help you? How can I help you? All right, what's the issue? And I think that kind of response helps to center the conversation. And listen, not everyone responds to that. And I think sometimes you have to be okay with saying, I've done everything that I can. I've given you all the information. I've given you the resources. I don't think I can help you anymore because I've given you all the tools. And those cases happen. But for the majority of the cases, people welcome those opportunities where they're able to get information. And so you work hard at that. It's interesting, the whole dynamic of Citizens Academy and access to government and learning about government. And you would think that it would be like a total no-brainer. But I was looking it up, and I remember that you were quoted in, I want to say it was a Greenfield Recorder, and you were quoted back in 2018, and they knew that you had implemented the program in the city of Pittsfield, and they wanted to implement a similar program in Conway. And so when I read through that article, I was surprised that there was pushback from some of the elected officials. And again, to the point about access, you know, we assume that access is universal and across the board. But we realized that the fact that there was pushback against a program like Citizens Academy, which really offers, insight, it makes you realize that access is not something that you have to take for granted. Access is something that has to be intentional and it has to be worked on every day. And I think that's something that we do here, in the city. So that was surprising, but hopefully I haven't checked in with Conway to see if they have implemented their program, but hopefully, maybe they've come to some kind of resolution. Now we're going into, we have all 3 years, under our belt having this program. What's your future goal for the program? I mean, do you see it evolving in any way?
I think there's a lot of directions that Citizens Academy, obviously I want to still support and continue on the program. Hopefully we'll be gearing up for a launch later this summer, early this fall. I also see it evolving. I would love to transition it to sort of that high school, junior, senior, because I feel like there's a lot of great, I think is having an experience of going through school. I think there are some sort of life skills, like, you should be registered to vote, before you leave high school. You should be understanding how you get in touch with your elected officials, who your elected officials are. You should walk away with that knowledge and experience. So I do have some things in the works to potentially expand this program within the school system in some fashion in the future.
Okay.
So
all right.
We'll see.
I see you're holding things close to the vest. That's okay. But I guess we know that Citizens Academy will have an evolution of sorts. So I guess we have to just stay tuned. All right. That's all great. BLP. So BLP is pretty big. I mean, I was just doing some research on it. I have not gone through BLP, but BLP is a who's who. And you are a part of the class of 2014. Was this something that, you just knew you had to be a part of? In addition to your professional work, you're in the midst of government. Did you see this as a great supplement to your professional career?
So the Berkshire Leadership Program was an opportunity that came up during my time at the city clerk's office. And throughout my career, I have always had people within my life who say, this kind of has your name all over it. And so through my work mentors, it was that little bit of nudge to say, this is an opportunity that you should explore. So I looked into it, applied, was able to join the class of 2014. And it's just one of those experiences where I got to connect with, future potential leaders who had an interest in me as a resident of Pittsfield for all of my life. I learned things through that program about my community that I may have not have ever known. Especially too, sometimes we get so stuck in our own sort of spaces. We go into work, we do our things. Sometimes we don't kind of get outside of that space. And so Berkshire Leadership taught me so much, and two, it's so great because you get to hear from local leaders who you may not ever have the chance to get to know. And we visited all over, top to bottom of the county, and really got to spend some time in our great surrounding communities and learning all about them. So
you were also quoted as saying that BLP helped you to step outside your personal comfort zone. So how so?
I think for me, I'm the type of person who is always supportive of others and encouraging others. And so sometimes for me, it's not always something that I'm like, oh, yes, I should be doing this. Sometimes I need that person to be like, hey, you should be doing this. And to me, I'm like, oh, I should be. So I think, too, it was, we can all tend to get stuck in sort of our traditional ways of, no, I'm going into work, I have this going on, I have that going on. Sometimes we don't want to push ourselves to grow, at least I don't, to grow a little bit more. I'm always curious and always trying to learn. But sometimes I think, well, maybe this isn't the right opportunity for me. But sometimes I don't know unless I give it a try.
Right.
And I did that with Berkshire Leader, and so happy that I was able to be a part of it.
So not only were you a part of it, but then you were able to move into leadership, roles and talk about growth. I mean, from stepping outside your comfort zone to assuming leadership positions. I mean, was that something that you were like, did you have those voices in your ear saying you can do this? Or did you say, I am ready?
I think it was more of I am ready. I think going through the program, I really learned a lot and in a way wanted to give back to the program and further develop it. The interesting thing about the Berkshire Leadership Program, it is mainly, coordinated by the steering committee. So it's really a working body who plans the speakers, gets the location all set and ready to go, and really plans that content. And so I wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And, with the topics that we covered, there were areas of interest to me and that I had a network in that I wanted to offer. So by having those connections, it worked for securing those speakers. And I just wanted to, it was in my mind a way that I could give back and have the program continue growing in a different way. Excellent.
All right. So in addition to BLP, and you have finished your appointment, and you actually are a member of some other boards, Berkshire Business and Professional Women. You are a part of that board, so you're doing good work there, and that's a working board as well. And we're actually on the board together. So that's a working board. And so the work continues. And you do serve in that capacity. I want to say, Catherine, you're a secretary, right? So
Correct.
Again, you are able to take some of those skills from BLP and utilize it there. But again, the political realm, again, you find a way to continue that work. And so outside of City Hall, I mean, you are supremely active with, the Ward 6 Democratic Committee, and you're a member of the Berkshire Democratic Brigade Steering Committee. So again, for like those of us who are not part of committees like this, what is this work like, and like what do you do?
Sure. So as chair of the Ward 6 Democratic Committee, every year there is a caucus that is held. And so, for example, this year, the caucus selected the delegates who would attend the convention, and it's a part of the sort of voting process. Like a person running for statewide office not only has to obtain enough signatures to make it onto the ballot, but they also have to gain a particular percentage of the delegation in order to move forward with their campaign. There's a lot of thresholds that have to be met. So being a delegate to the convention is important because your voice is being heard, and you have to decide, okay, who are you standing behind? Who are you supporting, as a candidate, and who do you want to see move forward? And then obviously it turns over into the voters' hands after, and they get to decide at the end of the day. But it's part of that sort of government process, and each party operates a little bit differently. I can only speak to the Democrat Party, but being the chair of our caucus is to try to keep people engaged here at the local level, as well as when it's time to elect delegates for convention. We have some ways for people to get involved in that.
Wow. And so your path to chair, did you ever think that you would be chair of this committee?
No.
Like how did that happen?
No. Our committee at the time was small, and again, it was just one of those opportunities that I said, I don't know what this is about, but I think it's something I want to maybe be involved in. So I showed up years ago to a caucus that was held, and with some of the members who existed, they're like, she's young. She'll go to the convention. We've done this. We've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But, like, we see your energy.
Right.
We want to capture that energy, and you can go. And so I was like, that's easy? That's all I have to do?
Sure.
So it was just a great, again, a new experience.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of that I was just kind of at the right place at the right time, and they're like, we're ready to sort of turn the page and hand over to some new people.
Yeah.
So then I was elected chair for our our ward.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So you are a busy woman.
A little bit.
You are a busy woman. All right. So, and you're active in your church.
Yes.
So you are a member of St. Joseph Church, and aren't you elected to like some type of position there too?
I am. I currently serve as the secretary to the parish council, and I've been in that role for a few years now.
See, there you go. So, I mean, you stay busy, whether you're in the office or outside of the office, you are busy. Well, one of the things that folks may not always know about, like our office, it's pretty small. I mean, so you come into City Hall and in the mayor's office, so it's the mayor, Mayor Tyer's there. But then there's only two of us. So
some people think it's more, but it's not.
It's just us. And one of the beautiful things about being in a setting like that is that you have the opportunity to have really insightful conversations. And Catherine and I, every day we have conversations informally. Always seems like just about different things. We've been able to talk about issues of race and gender, things going on in the world. I mean, obviously we're in the world of politics, so we talk about that, but then we're also able to make connections to bigger things. And I know for me, I have valued these discussions because I've been able to learn things that I did not know before. And even when we've had times where we have different views on things, we've always been able to have these conversations in a respectful manner where we learn from one another. How have you, in thinking about these kind of conversations, what are some of the thoughts that you've had about them?
So throughout our time in the mayor's office, I have so valued our friendship and how it has grown over these years. And I think one of my observations of our friendship and in these conversations that we have is that we both have a willingness to learn and a willingness to listen.
Yeah.
I think listening is a huge part of a conversation.
Yeah.
And two, you have to have some willingness to kind of take off your own perspective and try to put yourself in another's perspective. I think that is super important, and sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not easy because, we all come to a place from very different places and very different experiences. And I think that in my work, sometimes when people come in and they're like at a 10,
yeah,
and I'm like, I know you're at a 10, and I know your frustration's not on me, but you also have to come down.
Right.
You gotta, I have to kind of just take a moment to breathe.
Right.
I have to get them to breathe so that way I can really, truly understand the point of the issue
right.
and what they're trying to accomplish. So
Right.
I think sometimes, I think the way that I grew up and how I view the world and view others, it allows me that space to say, look, they might have 5 other things happening in their lives right now, and this could just be that last thing that sort of pushed them to this point.
Exactly.
So let's pause. Let's try to have an understanding of that. Let's try to get on a even surface here to say, okay, I understand you're here and I'm here, but let's try to work this out and work together. And
Absolutely.
I think it takes patience and persistence and, having an understanding and giving people space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, to the point about what you said about respect, that element of respect is so key, and the different perspectives, not only the ones that we may sometimes have, but when people come into the office and people have perspectives from so many, it runs the gamut.
Yes.
And I think the baseline of all our interactions is consistently that of respect. I think one of the things, no one can ever accuse us of not being respectful, because that is key, and it's cornerstone just to how we interact. And one of the things that in our conversations, apart from the people that come into the office, but just our conversations, I always tell you that I said, in the future, down wherever you go, like in the future, it's when we think about how we have an impact on the world, I always say it starts with those conversations. It starts with coming out of our comfort zone and learning about different people, learning about different perspectives. And we make an impact through our sphere of influence, and I have no doubt, Catherine, that you are going to be in some leadership position.
No pressure.
I have no doubt about that. And what I've always said to you is that always remember those key tenets, always remember that baseline, always remember those things that that you have experienced and that in terms of just engaging with people, because that will continue to serve you well, as you continue to ascend in your professional career. So one of the things that I know is that, one, you're a busy person in and outside of the office, but you still make time for a special place, and it begins with a capital D. Okay. And that might be a hint for some of our listeners who also know this magical place that begins with a D. But Catherine, please tell us where you and your family like to go every year.
Disney World.
Disney World.
We're big Disney fans. It's you would think working in public service that I would run completely away from the public when I go on vacation, but I just love the experience of what we have down there. We stay at new places, we get to try new things. They're always building something new rides, new attractions, new shows. It's just a really great getaway. I think I have the ins and outs of it pretty well secured, and would love to talk to anybody about planning a trip.
So listen here. The last time I've been to Disney World, okay, the one in Florida is Disney World, right? Okay, I always get it confused. So the last time I went to Disney World, I was 9, okay? And we're talking the 80s. And to give you context of when I went to Disney World, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids just came out, and my brother and I got selected to ride on the mechanical bee behind us was a green screen, and we were told to scream our heads off, and we did. So that was the last time I went to Disney.
You got to go back.
I'm so okay. So I'm one of those individuals that I'm overwhelmed by the whole process. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Do I go on orbit and try to plan out my trip? I don't know where do I go? Help!
I think the help of a travel professional.
Yeah.
Into once you understand have a sense of, you got to do your research.
Okay.
You got to understand, if you're a person who loves roller coasters, there's some great roller coasters, but if you're a person who likes to be a little bit more laid back and relaxed, there are things to do for that. Or even if you just wanted to, chill at your resort, you can do that. The resort is an experience in itself.
So how do you get started? Okay, you're an aficionado. I know you have the experience in your brain, Catherine, but for the folks like myself who I said, okay, family, we want to go to Disney. What should I do? Should I just write down the itinerary? Should I go somewhere? What are some insider tips?
Videos online.
Okay.
Because there are so many people who do this for a living, whether they're travel professionals or just a vlogger, that you can learn every aspect of how to plan a trip, to the best way to the best dining that you would want to be a part of, or the best experiences. So you get to see firsthand what they're experiencing, or what they recommend, and then you can take that and say, okay, this works for my family, and so this is how I've learned a lot of tips and tricks by reading through some blogs or watching some vlogs, and seeing firsthand okay, how do they navigate? Disney can all be planned in an app.
Really? Disney?
Yes.
What? There's an app for that?
There's always an app for that. So you can plan a lot of things, but too, if you're a person who likes flexibility, you can create that in your trip. You know?
Should I get the app? So let's say I want to plan a Disney trip. Should I get the app and use that as my framework?
Yeah, there's a lot of great resources. I mean, you have maps, you have, you can see all the places.
See, this is why I'm getting overwhelmed right now.
No,
the maps, the app, the videos. It's a bit much.
Once you understand it, it's really a lot of fun. I mean, I love to plan, so it's definitely within my wheelhouse. I love that. That to me is almost just as exciting as the anticipation of the trip is the planning part of it, because I love just putting that all together. It's just in my nature, but it's so much fun. Okay, so I believe there might be a Disney trip in the works for 2022. Maybe. Okay, and if that were the case, are there any things that would be on the must-see list? Oh, must-see list. There are some new attractions in Hollywood Studios. For any of the Star Wars fans who might be listening, there are a lot of great new places down there that bring you into that world. So something to look forward to. I have to say that prior to just our conversations about Disney, I would never have thought about going, because like in my mind I thought, oh, that's just for like little kids. And then even when my kids were little, I was like, oh, it's just a lot. Misrepresentation, Roberta. But you're absolutely right. There are hardcore Disney adults. And we have some also at City Hall too. We do because I hear them talking with you. But you're absolutely right. I am inspired to actually think about this as a trip, and I am. I have to say, it does feel a little bit overwhelming because there's so much. I think from a sensory level, there's just like, okay, what am I looking at? There's so many different studios and so many different things. But I am inspired to plan something, and so I'll help you. I have a built-in resource. I'll get you all set up. Well, thank you very much. And there was one thing I thought about as we were talking, and I want to also just clarify. I said, as you move into leadership roles, and I just want to say, I believe that you are in a leadership role. Okay, so I thought about that, and I was like, I just want to make that really clear, because you are a leader in the work that you do. And, sometimes there are terms out there that all these outdated terms for the work that we do, and people have these ideas. And I'm like, if you only knew, this woman she is on it. And so you are a leader in what you do. And as you continue to ascend the leadership ranks and move on to different forms of leadership, that I think that's a proper clarification. Roberta. You're very welcome. I just wanted to make that known. All right, so we are coming down to the wire. We have about 6 minutes left, but I want to know who or what inspires you to keep going. What inspires me to keep going? So many things. I think first and foremost, my parents sort of instilled these values in me of that you have to work hard to achieve your goals. They're not just going to be handed to you. And also the importance of taking what you know and what you've learned and what you've gained and giving that back to the community. They were always involved in different, whether it be through church or other groups, always finding ways, or through schools, always finding ways to just donate a bit of their time. And I think the donation of time, if you're not a person who, has a whole lot or don't feel like you have a whole lot, your time is very precious. And if you have it in your heart and if in your ability to donate your time to others or organizations that you're passionate about, do it, because that means so much. And you may think you're not giving a whole lot, but that time is precious. And when you dedicate yourself to an organization or a cause, and you're giving your all to that's huge, and it's really making a difference. And that sort of making a difference, and just even if it's a little thing, if it's just something small that we accomplished today, to me that's like, okay, we did this one thing today, and those are moments that keep me going.
And sometimes you have to hang on to that one thing, especially if you had quite the day. That one thing is that thing that makes your heart sing and smile and say, all right, everything else may have not gone the way I thought it would, but that one thing keeps you going. And you said something really key about time. Time is a commodity. Time, especially as you're coming up, as a young professional, for young professionals out there, they may, to your point, they may not think that they have something to offer. They may not have maybe maybe they don't have the funds to maybe donate or do different things. But your time and your expertise is so valuable. And I just point to that instance when you were at the Democratic Committee and those, the older members looked around and said, okay, she has given up her time and her energy. Mm-hmm. So they took your time and your energy and they viewed it as assets. Mm-hmm. And so it's thinking about not what we have to give that equates to what we have in our wallet, but what we have in our mental, our social resources, and that is huge.
Yes.
And that's what I think that young professionals need to understand, that it's not about what's in the wallet, although that helps too, but it's about what you can do with what you have.
Right.
Don't keep looking for what is going to be. Start with what you have, and that is enough. All right. So we're winding down to about 3 minutes. So if you had to choose one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
For me, it would be empathetic. I am a person who feels others' feelings.
Yeah.
I also try to relate to others,
yeah,
and understand from their perspectives and viewpoint. So I'm a person who wears her emotions on her sleeve.
Yes.
So I definitely think empathy, and being empathetic is something that fits me pretty well.
I would agree. You definitely are empathetic. And I think in our culture, sometimes, we're toughened, by experience, by life. Life can beat you down. Situations can beat you down. And so that gives us a tough exterior sometimes. And I think there's something to be said for being vulnerable. There's something to be said for allowing ourselves to feel. To feel is to be human and to experience life in all its stages and phases and realms. And we should never allow ourselves to stop feeling. And so kudos to you for feeling and embracing that that aspect of yourself, because it's something that so sometimes society will say, toughen it up. Don't cry and don't, and all of this, hold it together. And we've had conversations about this where sometimes we should be okay to say, I'm not okay.
Right.
I'm not okay. And maybe I just need a moment. And we need to give ourselves that grace,
yes,
so that we can be our full selves. If we're always together, if we always say, I have it, I'm okay, there's something wrong. Because we're not robots. No. And we're not always going to have it.
We have feelings. We have emotions. It's all a part of who we are as people.
Absolutely. And I think we have to own it.
Yes.
So, Catherine Van Bramer, it has been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, you're not only my colleague, you're a work sister, you're a friend, and I so value you. And I'm so glad that you agreed to be a guest on Backstory, assuming a different seat than the one you assumed in the very, very early days of the show. Thank you for coming back and sharing a little bit about your professional journey, and letting our listeners know who you are. And so, everyone, I just want to thank you again for tuning in to Backstory. Let's hear it on WTBR-FM Pittsfield. You've been listening to the show, and I am Roberta McCulloch-Dews of the Mayor's Office, and I just want to thank you and have a great day.